Well, this week marks the 20th anniversary of the final victory in the illustrious career of NASCAR Hall of Famer, the late Dale Earnhardt. He drove to victory lane in the Winston 500 at Talladega, October 15th, 2000. That race indelibly burned into the psyches and the memories of anybody who was there, as the Intimidator slashed his way forward from 17th place to the checkered flag in the final 10 laps. With a little drafting help from our friend and his Kenny Wallace, his Richard Childress teammate Mike Skinner was in the mix that day as well. Both of them are here with us to kind of remember that day. Herman, I want to start with you. Earnhardt, when it was over, gave you all the credit in the world for sticking with him in those final laps. He said without your drafting help, he wasn't going to victory lane. What are your memories of that day?
Our memories of that day were, I believe, 10 laps ago, we had a caution, and I came down pit road, and Jimmy Elledge, my crew chief at the time, called for 2 tires, right sides only. And we had a mistake, and Jimmy said, just come around to the left side, let's change all 4. And when I came off pit road, I knew I was the last car off pit road. And to my surprise, I looked in the mirror, and there was Earnhardt behind me. And I keyed the button to Jimmy Elledge, and I said, what happened to Earnhardt? And that's what started it all, was that moment right there.
Skinner, you were in it to win it that day too. Finished 6th, if memory serves, and had your shot at victory lane. What do you remember that afternoon at Talladega?
All this time, I've been mad at Dale Jr. because he jumped out of line and screwed the draft up toward the front. But it's Kenny's the one I should be mad at. Yep. That was our race we let slip away, and it just shows you Dale Sr. was an amazing guy at making stuff happen. When he didn't have a winning car that day, his car was about a 6th place car. The 31 was a winning car that day, and we finished 6th, and he won the race. So it was a normal Sunday, right? But he was just amazing at making stuff happen. And then when he had a partner like Kenny, and I had partners at those restrictor plate. Dale Jarrett, I was talking about this the other day. Dale Jarrett was a better teammate when it came to the restrictor plates for me than Dale Sr. was. But we worked together a lot, and when it gets down to the end, then it's kind of every man for himself. But you'd a lot rather push a guy and better your position than to fight the guy and worsen your position. So obviously Kenny did the right thing, and it just, Dale Sr. could just make it happen. He was the best ever at it.
We all knew how big he was, how good he was on the big tracks. But I remember I was calling the backstretch that day for the Motor Racing Network, and I remember with 2 or 3 to go being shocked because I ran back through the top 5, and all of a sudden there was Earnhardt and there was Kenny Wallace, and they were coming like their tails were on fire. And I very clearly remember saying, where in the heck did he come from? And pretty soon everybody had to deal with him.
Yeah, I said the same thing. Where the heck did he come from? Richard Childress and I are still very good friends. And year before last, we were neighbors in Spruce Creek at the time. I think he sold his house now. But we were sitting on the back porch, and he was saying, all the ones that we let get away or that got away for one reason or another, that one probably got him a little more than any of them, because it was purely a day that if anybody else would have passed us for that, Richard probably would have been really mad, except Richard Childress Racing still won the race. So I was the same way. I looked up in the mirror and I'm like, where in the heck did he come from? But that wasn't a big shocker. He was famous for that.
Herm, people used to say that Earnhardt could see the air. I mean, we all know that wasn't perftly true, but
yes,
he did
was.
know where he did know where it was, and he did know how to use it to his advantage, didn't he?
He did, and I can tell you specifically one moment in that race that shocked me. First of all, I got to say that when I look back on that, and one thing that I remember, just for a millisecond, I was coming through the trial, and I don't know, Mike, you had a row on your outside, but we were the outside row. I could remember hearing the people cheering, going nuts. I mean, over the race cars. And, Mike and Moody, at that time, we had, 250,000 people in the grandstands at that time.
Dale Earnhardt goes powering high to the outside of Mike Skinner. The fans just beside themselves here at Talladega, jumping up and down, yelling, screaming. Off the corner they come 2 by 2. You can't tell them apart, Skinner and Earnhardt.
Clearly, that was a moment coming through the trial. And the other thing I asked Dale Sr. after the race, we had one more car that we had to get past. So to your point about seeing the air, I remember coming through the travel and we had John Andretti in the 43 car. That was the last car we had to get by. And when we got close to Andretti's car, it just kind of moved up the trial and we just went right by him. And when the race was over, I remember, Earnhardt, he had a drink in his hand later that night. And I looked at him and I said, how did we get by Andretti? And I promise you, my hand on a Bible, he never even said a word. He shrugged his shoulders. It was almost as if like Earnhardt knew how to position his car on Andretti. And it, as Mike can tell you, the tri-oval is not as easy as it looks. There's some seams in the asphalt there that can make the car walk across the track if you're not really on the wheel or you position your car right. But that is when I started, okay, Earnhardt may not be able to see the air, but he knows how to manipulate the car in front of him. And to this day, Earnhardt just shrugged his shoulders. I'm like, what happened there? How did we just get by him?
Mike, we saw Earnhardt as, I think superhuman might be a good word in situations like that, where he would do things and after the fact we would say, all right, he just drove from 17th to win in the final 10 laps at Talladega. We looked at him as otherworldly in that regard. Did his fellow drivers see him that way too? When it was all over, are you guys after the race just scratching your head saying, how the hell did he do that?
We did that a number of weekends, and I'll be honest with you, talking a little bit about the trial what Kenny was talking about. Dale, it's funny because you could put your car behind somebody and you'd be in one spot on the racetrack and you'd be turning to the right. You'd actually be a little bit loose. But if somebody got right on that corner right there, it would make your car tight and it would slide across the seams. And I don't know what happened to John Andretti's car either. I'm like Kenny, but somehow or the other, Dale Sr. figured out how to get a position on that thing, and he had help from behind. So it worked out. But Dale, he could make sure that he was the funnest guy in the world, especially on not a restrictor plate. If we get stuck in the back somewhere, if I was behind him, I'm a happy guy because they'll just pull over for him. They're going to race the crap out of me. But if I was close enough to him, I could go with him. He wanted to tag along.
I want to ask both of you this. Kenny, we'll start with you. As impressive as that day was, none of us knew at the time that it would be his final trip to victory lane and that we would lose him at Daytona just 4 months later. Has his loss, Herman, made that day even more special to you?
110% accurate. So when the race itself stood on its own merit as exciting, unbelievable. Winston 500, but sadly, and I say this with a very somber face, is that, when it ended up, when we realized that would be Dale's, last win of his life, then that's when people really started ramping up talking about that race. So yes, you're 110% accurate on that. Up until then, it was just a great race. But sadly, and I say this, it's hard for me sometimes to look back at that race because, when we lose people, we always want to put our 2 cents in that, oh, he was my best friend. But boy, when we lost Senior, it's just real sad to look back and think that was the last memory that we really had of a spectacular race by him.
Would you agree, Mike?
I do. It was kind of bittersweet for me. And the first thing that popped to my mind, and I don't want to be corny here, but I don't know if that was his last win or not, because I'm sure when we get to heaven, him and my mother will be running the place. So
he'd probably spin her out.
yeah. I just hope that I don't have to ask him if I can come through the door, because he'll probably turn me away. But, my last memory was a little bit different than that. But I think that we look back at that race, and it was classic Dale Sr. Won the race with a 5th or 6th place car. I mean, how many times in that guy's career did we see that happen? We had a joke at RCR, and Larry and I called that team the mattress truck, because they could fall out of the sky from 40,000 feet and a mattress truck would drive underneath them. So we always thought they were lucky, but they wasn't. They made their luck. They prepared for it, and he was the best out there at making the situation happen in his favor. So he was just tough, man. The guy was you look at guys like that, and you go back and look at the Tim Richmonds of the world, and the Richard Pettys and the Bobby Allisons and David, and I could go on and on. These guys were men. I mean, holy smokes, they really, really had a lot of grit, and they had a lot of want to. And I think the want to carried Dale Sr. His career a lot further than everybody else's.
Guys, it's been a lot of fun reliving a great day in the history of our sport, all of our personal lives as well, a day that we won't forget. I appreciate you. Thank you.
You bet, man.
Thank you.